One day when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. Oh, one day when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure. War has been a part of my life since I can remember. I had a deep sense of the suffering and the fear around me.
I learned that when people's rights are violated, when their countries are occupied, when they're oppressed and humiliated, they need a powerful way to resist and to fight back.
Which means that no matter how terrible and destructive violence is,
If people see it as their only choice,
They will use it. Yesterday I held my fist in the air while the internet trolls asked,
why break the window?
instead of,
why kill the black kid?
yesterday I was going to set this country on fire, action block by action block.
In today's political climate, people all over the world are refusing to accept and cooperate with the oppression and injustice that exists.
And so they disobey, and they defy, and they fight back.
But what if fighting back could be more than just a reaction to circumstances? What if fighting back could be less violent, but just as effective?
Jamila Rakib, the executive director of the Albert Einstein Institution, gave a TED Talk last year on a technique of socio-political action for applying power in a conflict without the actual use of physical violence.
A technique that isn't new, but is hardly mainstream.
Until now.
Retired professor of political science at the University of Massachusetts and author of The Politics of Nonviolent Action, Gene Sharp, is quoted as saying,
Oppressors are never as strong as they tell you they are, and the people are never as weak as they think they are.
The goal of this RT is to catapult the idea of nonviolent action to the forefront of a movement that has been ignited in all of us recently. Because it's time for revolution!
or no.
No. This RT might be a mini one.
But with the literature, Protest, a poem by Imani Shazan.
Betrayal, the Unspeakable by Shirley Jocelyn Lim.
Glory, Best Original Song by John Legend and Common.
And TED Talk by Jamila Rakib.
It was created with the capacity
To fuck a motherfucker up! We are 198!
hands to the heavens, no man, no weapon. Everyday women and men become legends. This movement is a rhythm to us. Freedom is like religion to us. Justice is juxtaposition in us. Justice for all just ain't specific enough.
Resistance is us!
That's why Rosa sat on the bus. That's why we walk through Ferguson with our hands up. And when it go down, we woman and man up. They say stay down, and we stand up.
Almost all of you recognize this image. It's Tiananmen Square in 1989, and thousands of protesters have just been killed.
But in a stunning moment of defiance, one man decided to block the path of the tank using only his body.
Most people assume that after this picture was taken, the man was crushed by the tanks.
But that's not what happened.
In fact, the tank did stop.
And then it swerved.
Then the man once again jumped in front of the tank.
And the tank swerved again.
This entire column of tanks was stopped, if only for a few moments.
By this one man.
The most powerful weapon is not a tank.
It's a human one. It's the political application of a type of behavior that thankfully comes very natural to us. It's basic human stubbornness.
Yo mama know what I'm talking about!
We're fired up!
Can't take it no more! The people, united, will never be divided! You can't stop the revolution!
Yesterday I marched in the street. The passers-by were inconvenienced by the acknowledgement of the dead.
Where you gotta be so quick you can't stop for a moment of silence!
What have you done for 4.5 hours that was like watching no one come for your child's body?
How civil and disobedience do you expect when black boys are buried and then put on trial?
Activists around the world are getting better at grabbing headlines.
San Diego Tribune, August 30th, 2016. Some students take the bus, others cross the freeway.
The Guardian, October 31st, 2016. Standing Rock ignites calls on social media.
Reuters, February 4th, 2017. Hashtag no ban, no wall. Anti-Trump protests continue throughout Europe and US.
But these isolated actions do very little if they're not a part of a larger strategy.
A general wouldn't march his troops to battle unless he had a plan to win the war. Yet,
This is how most of the world's nonviolent movements operate.
Nonviolent struggle is just as complex as military warfare, if not more.
Its participants must be well trained and have clear objectives.
And its leaders must have a strategy of how to achieve those objectives.
Today, there is no more fight left in me.
Meanwhile, the streets are gagging on the flesh of the slaughtered. The top of the food chain has never been in danger.
But what if instead we fought oppressors where they're weak? If we could only see how an oppressive system depends on what we do, or even what we refuse to do, then we can begin to build a nonviolent strategy that can actually change those systems, or even destroy them.
We gon' be alright.
Can you hear me? Do you hear me?
We gon' be alright. There have been ongoing protests since Freddie Gray died in police custody. What's going on has informed and inspired the larger Black Lives Matter movement in the United States, as well as anti-oppression movements around the world.
And when demonstrations were banned at the Climate Summit in Paris, November 29, 2015, activists found another way to fill the streets. They used only their shoes. Even Pope Francis sent his shoes to join the demonstration.
Women in Uganda stopped the government from seizing their village by taking off their clothes when soldiers came to their land. It's considered a curse in Ugandan culture to see an older woman naked. So, when the soldiers are ordered to shoot, they refused.
People are beginning to understand that we must learn from the available knowledge of how nonviolent struggle works.
And the history of those who have used it to gain freedom.
Like Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
And not only them, but others whose names are less well known.
You.
As participants of speech, we use our voice on this platform to inform and inspire. But which one of us will take it beyond these walls?
Who speaks?
Who will not speak?
When will who speak?
When will who not speak?
How will who speak?
How will who not speak?
What will who speak?
What will who not speak?
Why will who speak?
Why will who not speak?
Who? When? How? What? Why speak?
Speak!
Not speak!
Speak!
Not speak!
Not speak!
Speak!
We are at an important moment in human history.
We no longer need to rely on intuition or improvisation.
The tools to conduct nonviolent struggle effectively and skillfully exist.
Gene Sharp has identified 198 methods of nonviolent action. Far too often, people struggling are not aware of the full range of methods of nonviolent action.
And protest is only one.
Protest can be a great way to show that people want change on their own. But they don't actually create change, at least any change that is fundamental.
So, what's the tank that you want to disassemble?
What is the oppressive system that seems impossible to overcome?
And then, instead of seeing that system as one entity, see it instead as made up of different parts.
Parts that rely on our cooperation.
Participation and obedience.
Because just as a tank has a fatal weakness, so also do other systems.
And that fatal weakness could be your disobedience and your willingness to say no.
This year's International Labor Day saw millions of people protesting worldwide. Leaders of May Day describe it as just the beginning of a summer of resistance.
Moving forward, we need to understand that lasting change will not happen with just one demonstration.
The key to successful resistance after protest is connecting our fights to each other and sustaining them until victory.
One day, when the glory comes, it'll be ours, it'll be ours. One day, when the war is won, we will be sure, we will be sure.
Summer is now for every man, woman, and child. Even Jesus got his crown while in front of a crowd. They march with the torch, we gon' run with it now. Never look back, we done gone hundreds of miles. The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful.
The biggest weapon is to stay peaceful.
With human innovation, the greatest hope for humanity lies in making violence
Obsolete.